So Descript Storyboard should have launched by the time you watch this video, and let me walk you through what's new and where stuff moved. A lot of people found it very confusing when they played with the beta versions of the storyboard, and they may have a little trouble getting accustomed to the new interface and where things are that they used to do. So if you have been working on classic version so far, and many months, you're used to a bunch of stuff being in the right place, and you remember where it is, and it's kind of all becomes second nature to you. The storyboard version has made quite significant changes to the interface to accommodate the new video-oriented way of working, so then a lot of things have moved place. In this video, I try to show you kind of the highlights of where stuff has moved that you used to know from Classic to the storyboard version. So let's start. The first thing, and this is the big gamble for Descript, they are really pushing this thing called scenes. So the scenes are the new way of editing videos in Descript. You can have a whole composition, as long as you need it to be, but you can break it down into scenes, and then the layout changes in all those scenes depending on how you want to arrange your elements on the screen. Think about it as PowerPoint slides, but for your video. As you can see, there's a slash sign there in the composition at the top. That is the symbol for scene. When you want to create a new scene somewhere down here, for example, all you have to do is press slash, and that's going to include a scene right there. Scenes break your project apart into different scenes or segments, and then within each of these segments, you can arrange the elements on the screen any way you like. And as soon as the playback goes into that scene, you will see the elements arranged that way. So for example, in this scene, I would like to move my video in the corner right there. And maybe I can bring in more elements like text or images, graphics, or a second video if I want to. And look, in the first scene, if I go up, my video is full screen. On the second scene, it's there. If I go down here and I create a new scene again, you can see every time you create a scene, you see the elements, the thumbnails showing up on the sidebar there. You can have an idea about what's going on in that scene. So for this scene, right, I'm going to move my video in this corner here. Doesn't matter. So right now, this is my first scene, my second scene, my third scene. So this opens up a lot of possibilities you didn't have in the classic version, because you can now break apart your project into these scenes, and you can have different layouts right here in place without resorting to rearranging things in a sequence and maybe going deep down and rearranging stuff, duplicating stuff all over the place. Now you can do this in scenes right here and edit your content only one time. This was not available in Classic. So this is going to be the major way that the Descript team is going to develop even more. You can see these thumbnails. You can go to the top menu here and you can expand the scene thumbnails so they become larger, and also it means that if I add a scene somewhere in the middle of the text in here, it's going to move that to a new line. So that's very easy to see where stuff is and how my project is progressing. The second thing is the timeline. There is not so much emphasis on the timeline anymore, although you still have it. It's at the bottom of the window. In the classic version, it was at the bottom and you could resize it and you could scroll around. It's still there in Storyboard. You can expand it and see more. And you can see these indicators here. These mean scenes that you've added in your script. So the editing is encouraged to be more script-based than timeline-based, like in classic video editing software. So still, that doesn't mean you can't access the timeline and you can't see all the things you have there. If you've added images and so on and you don't see them there, it means that maybe the layers stack is turned off. You can turn that on by going to the very far right side here, and you can say show all layers, and that's going to show them all. If you don't turn that on, it's only going to show down there the ones that you have selected. So you see, I have a bunch of photos here. Some of them span across different scenes, so you can still do that and move clips around. If you put music, for example, it's going to anchor that in text, just like the classic version, and you can have your music playing throughout your project. But this is the layer stack, and it doesn't mean that if they are shown on top of each other down there, that's the exact same order they are stacked on your video, but you can still right-click on one of them and move it to the back, move it backwards if you want. And that doesn't mean necessarily that they will move in the timeline the same way. So the order of the stack in the timeline is no longer reflecting the actual order of the layers on top of each other. So that's one change here that you need to be aware of. I don't know if this is going to change soon, but anyway. So you still have the timeline, and you can pretty much do most of the things you used to do in the past, like dragging words around, selecting and making cuts, and all those things. Another thing that people were confused when they saw the new version is, where are my files? It's quite easy. They're right here. All the files that you imported into your project, whether they are audio, video, graphics, they are found here at the top in the media drawer. You click this to open it, and you can see all of your files here. These are the files that are part of my project right now. And you can still do the same thing you did, create folders, create sequences. Sequences also live here, by the way. And you can upload files from your computer and also by dragging and dropping. You can still create folders to group stuff together to stay organized. And you may notice that one thing is gone. Where are the compositions? Well, they have been moved to their own drawer. And by the way, a nice thing I like is that you can drag these drawers around. You can still not take them out of the window, so they are stuck to, they're confined to the surface, the area of the program, but at least they can be moved around, and they stay open when you leave them there. And here's the compositions. At the very top on the left, there you've got the project name, and then you've got the name of the current composition. If you click this drop down here, that opens the compositions drawer, which again, you can move it up and down all over the interface, and it stays open, which is quite nice. In the classic version, the compositions were right here on the sidebar, where you had everything mixed together, files, compositions, folders, everything was there. Well, in Storyboard, these two things have been separated, and it looks like it's a bit of a cleaner interface. And you have multiple compositions here. You can switch between them, and they change as you click on them. And you can also navigate with the arrows between them and press enter to open the one you want. So that's another way if you prefer the keyboard. Something that looks similar to the previous version, and it kind of does the same things, is these editing modes. In the past version, you had two editing modes. One was the editing mode where you would correct your text and go top to bottom whilst you were playing. And you also had the text edit mode, which allowed you to switch to the text editing mode, and you could type words in there without changing the every word and popping up that editing dialog. There is a slight change to the way you edit your transcript, and this is very important, and maybe it's going to take a little time to get used to. You still have your corrections that you can do when you play your project. So if I press space, and by the way, the space bar now starts the playback and stops it, no longer tab. So if I press to play, Chris, welcome to the show. You can see you can get the same experience of playing back and showing the words. But if you needed to make a change before, you would press E in classic mode. Here we go, in classic mode. Hold down the E key and click the word you want to correct. Well, in the Storyboard version, you can no longer press the E key to edit. You have to press C. And even that switches you to the correct mode. You see it's highlighted in the top left there, and you can now click the word you want to edit like this. And that still brings up that editing. But a distinction is, if you just press C to switch to the editing mode, but if you needed to make changes like in the past where you would switch to text edit mode, which allows you to just type words, whatever you want, including typing words for generating overdubs, that is no longer the Control-Alt-E key or whatever. You switch that from here. It's called write mode. The write mode will allow you to type your own script in there and also generate overdubs if you assign an overdub voice. Also, the write mode allows you to just click in here and make changes to your text as you wish without having to pop up that correction dialog. So if I want to make a change here, just type the comma. I may even add new words if I want to. There you go. So I'm typing words just in the text, and That doesn't necessarily generate an overdub here, but if I wanted to, it will do that. So 2 modes, correct mode and right mode. And to come out of the mode, you just press escape. And now you're back into playing back. This is my first test of continue making edits in the other mode. So it feels like there's 3 modes now to edit. It's really 2, but the correct mode is different, accessed differently. And if you want to make just a change to a single word without kind of switching these modes, you can still do this. Double click the word you want to correct, and you can either use this bar to trigger the correction dialog or just press C. And when you press C with a selection, it will open that selection for editing right there, just like the E key was doing in the classic version. So I hope this makes sense. It takes a little used to, and after you've used it for a few hours or a few projects, you'll feel right at home. And speaking of keyboard shortcuts, you know the classic version, you used to press tab to play and stop playback, and also the spacebar worked for that. Well, right now it's only the spacebar that works. And if you are in write mode, when it's likely that you will want to type the space character as well for your adding spaces, then Control S or Command S will start and stop the playback. I know I don't like having playback commands with 2 keys or a combination of keys, but I guess that's the best they could find that doesn't actually disrupt you typing space or tab, which was taken away because of user interface experience and accessibility reasons. So they say there was no way around that. And I kind of understand it. I did kick and scream before, but I guess, once you get used to the new keys, it's fine. And other keys that have changed, all the keys at the top, Q, W, and E for capitalization, punctuation, and editing, have been moved down 2 rows on your keyboard. So now they are Z, X, and C. So Z is for capitalization changes, just like before. If I want to make this a capital G or lowercase g, you just hold down the Z key and click on the word, just like before. And the X key is for changing the punctuation, like this, comma, and cycle through a comma and a period. And then also the C key switches you to the correct mode, and that still allows you, if you hold it down, it doesn't matter if you hold it down or just press it once, still allows you to click a word you want to correct. Click the word, and up goes the correction dialog. You make your change and press enter to accept it. So that's kind of the major keyboard shortcut changes. Most of the keyboards have changed, really. I think most of them have now been assigned to something else. Some of the video-related ones have been made simpler. For example, the making cuts, the blade, was Alt-B. Right now, it's actually changed to S for slice, I suppose. So if you come down here in the timeline, you need to make a cut in this clip, just press S, and that makes a cut right there. The tool keys have remained the same. If you look in this menu here where the tools are, by the way, they are select, range, blade, hand, and slip. So there's a new tool here, slip. We will talk about this in a separate session. All of the other keys have kept their shortcut keys. A to select, R for range, B for blade, and H for hand. So that's the shortcut keys. And by the way, if you're confused about the shortcut keys, you can open this menu, the help menu here, and you can go to keyboard shortcuts to see all of the keyboard shortcuts and what they are, and you'll soon get used to them. The audiograms have also changed. You know, there was this way where you went to the share menu in the classic version and you could export as an audiogram, and that allowed you to kind of create these animated audiograms with the words and waveform and all that stuff. Well, these have not completely gone, but you can find them now somewhere else, and they are actually part of the templates. If you go to the templates at the top, you can go to audiograms, and here they are. You can choose one to create it. But now you no longer have to export as an audiogram. You can import that as a template in your project, and it creates a composition with that template applied to it so that you can export that to any video format you like. And also, you can now build your own audiograms, which you kind of could do it in the classic version as well, since they introduced all those other tools like fancy captions, waveforms, progress bars, all those animated elements that you could use to build your own audiograms, which, let's be honest, they were much better looking than the standard ones that they came built with. So now the audiograms are here, and you can also create your own with the scenes and the elements and images, your logo and branding and all those things. You can do any of those things as audiograms. A tiny little change, in the classic version, if you wanted to use to create a video project, you could hover over this video area at the very top and choose the landscape or square or portrait formats right there. And you could also change the resolution and the frame rate. Well, this has not gone away. In the storyboard version, you can find this at these 3 dots on the top right of every composition. So this is a composition level change. And if you click there, you've got video settings, and you've got landscape, square, and portrait. It would appear like the pixel size, the resolution has gone. It hasn't really gone. You can, if you insist in setting those, you can go to custom, and there you have it, full HD. And that looks like the same dialogue that used to be in the beta version of Storyboard, where you could change from square to portrait to landscape, and also you are able to change the actual pixel size. However, the pixel size isn't really relevant here, because when you export your composition, you get to choose the resolution there anyway. So to be honest, only the aspect ratio matters. The resolution can be affected at the time of the export. And there's your frame rate change. So there are all the controls here for changing the aspect ratio and resolution for your project. One thing I mentioned before about the timeline, when I spoke about the timeline, it may be a bit confusing now. How can I move something in front of something else? Very easy. On your canvas, this is what that area is called, the video editing area. On the canvas, if I want to move this picture in front, I just right click on it and say move forward, like this. Or you can move it all the way back, all the way to the front, move forward, move to the front, all those things, you can do them right there. And I said, the stack at the bottom of the timeline does no longer dictate the stack, the visual stack, okay? They're just arranged there. And I noticed that the order they're shown in the timeline is pretty much the order in which you added them. So the ones that I added first at the bottom, and then the new ones at the top, they stack up as they have room, depending on how they overlap in terms of playback position. But don't be misled by the order in the timeline like you do in the other programs for video editing to mean the actual visual stack. You still have to look at that on the screen, on the canvas. Apart from all these changes, there's a new feature here that you could kind of do in the classic version, and we're talking about templates. This was a big request from all the users of Descript. I would like to create my own templates to manage my branding and my social media clips so that I don't have to build them every time. Well, templates are here now. You find them in their own special drawer at the top, templates. And really, just as a distinction, we will cover this in a separate session in this course. The templates are actually a different type of project. In order to create your own templates, you have to start from scratch with a brand new empty template project. You do that from your drive, and then you create the template, arrange all the elements, and save it as a template, and then you will find them in the My Templates area. So if I click New Template now, you will see Descript actually opens up a new window and starts a blank project. This is where I get to assemble my template, and then I get to save it and publish it. When I publish it, it gets stored in my templates, and I can use it in my future projects. So that's very new right now. And you will be happy to know that some video effects have now been added that were not available in the classic version. And we're talking green screen, chroma key, AI-driven green screen, which means it behaves just pretty much like Zoom does when it removes your background, despite the fact that you may not have a green screen. And also you get the chroma key, the standard removal of the green screen based on a color. And you also get such effects as color adjustments, blur, film grain, pixelate, zoom, blur, and some of them, they look like they're GPU driven. They're very fast and very cool. So you can apply those to your videos now, and you get a bunch of new transitions, no longer just fade in and out, but you can apply those at scene level, not necessarily at a clip level. So we will talk about those in a separate session. All of the effects, I'll be covering them. Finally, the thing that you may be relying on if you're doing like just text-based projects or just audio-based projects and you really care about the transcript, the filler word function, removal of gaps, shortening gaps and making corrections to text have pretty much remained the same. They work the same way, so you can still press search, Control F or Command F to search, find different words, and also you can switch to searching for word gaps or filler words, and so on. So all of these options are pretty much there just like before, just that the interface is slightly different. So if I search for filler words, for example, I can go here to find them. You see the results are all the way to the far right side. So that can be a bit of a disconnect between the script you're looking at and the results you're looking at. So cycling through them. And I hope very soon that dialog will be also made mobile, so I can move it around in my interface and put it back on the left where I'm used to it. But okay, it's not a tragedy. You can still kind of cycle through them with the clicks and with the shortcut keys, and you can kind of go and do a replace all if I need to, remove all. You can still replace the filler words with a gap click. But this interface has been nicely unified here. So everything is in this interface. You no longer need to be really in the bottom left or bottom right corners to access the functions. They're right there, so you can kind of see them. They are on top of my text, and I don't know how that's going to work if I'm going to have some content in there. But look, you can press F3 to cycle through them. Okay, well then. No, because I can see you. So the program takes care of kind of moving you through them if you press F3 on Windows or Control G on the Mac. So that at least is pretty much similar to what it was before. And I find that I used it already for quite a few months now. And yeah, I got used to it pretty quickly. So this was a quick fire session on what is new in Storyboard and where stuff moved in relation to the classic version if you are used to the classic version. But now in the next session, we're just going to look at each one of them and kind of go through everything you need to know to use the new Storyboard version of Descript.